Identify as the shock number strategy not because they necessarily expected to receive the full amount, but because the figure itself would force ABC into what corporate defenders call existential response mode, where settlement becomes more attractive than risking company-threatening liability. Look at the brilliant timing observed. A crisis management consultant studying the case filed on a Tuesday afternoon, giving news cycles maximum time to build through the week, submitted to the court division, with the judge most likely to allow discovery to proceed, announced through channels that ensured both conservative and mainstream outlets would cover it simultaneously. This wasn't just legal action, it was a media operation. Melania's legal team issued just one public statement, a masterpiece of what communication specialists call restrained aggression. Read simply: Mrs. Trump has allowed her filing to speak for itself. The truth has been systematically attacked. Now the truth will have its day in court. The former First Lady maintained what behavioral experts term strategic invisibility, disappearing from public view precisely when curiosity about her reached its peak. No interviews, no statements, no social media posts. This silence, what media trainers identify as narrative starve, fork news outlets to focus exclusively on the legal merits rather than personality conflicts. She's using silence as a weapon, explained a veteran political strategist. By saying nothing, she forces the view to fill the void, and with every defensive statement they make, they potentially dig themselves deeper. It's psychological warfare disguised as litigation, as legal documents circulated through media organizations. Journalists noted what document analysts call the deliberate breadcrumb trail, subtle hints in the filing suggesting Melania's team possessed additional evidence they hadn't yet revealed, creating what game theorists term the uncertainty problem for ABC's defense strategy. Meanwhile, The View continued broadcasting a surreal exercise in what communication scholars identify as pretended normalcy, while behind the scenes ABC executives began what financial planners recognize as worst case accounting, the grim calculation of exactly how much damage a losing verdict might inflict. The lawsuit ignited what media scholars term the validation wildfire, that rapid spreading conflagration of public reaction where everyone simultaneously feels their pre-existing worldview confirmed. News alerts pinged across millions of devices, transforming ordinary Tuesday dinner conversations into impromptu legal seminars conducted by suddenly expert amateur attorneys. Breaking: Melania Trump files $900 million defamation lawsuit against The View host. Screamed churn across cable news networks, triggering what audience researchers identify as the tribal sorting, that immediate polarization where viewers instantly choose sides based on political identity rather than legal merit. Conservative media outlets perform what journalism professors call the victory lap, preemption, celebrating a legal triumph not yet achieved, as though the mere filing itself represented vindication. Finally, someone holds fake news accountable. Trumpeted headlines across right-leaning platforms, their anchors barely containing what body language experts recognize as anticipatory gloating. This isn't just about Melania Trump, declared Tucker Carlson, his signature expression of puzzled concern reaching maximum intensity. This is about every conservative voice that's been smeared, every traditional value that's been mocked, every American tired of being told what they can think by daytime TV royalty who've never set foot in real America. Liberal media performed the equally predictable dismissal dance, that choreographed minimization that transforms significant threats into apparent trivialities. Trump family files another frivolous lawsuit, announced progressive publications, their analysis performing what rhetorical experts identify as the context strip, removing all background that might legitimize the complaint. Social media platforms experienced what data analysts call the opinion supernova, an explosion of hot takes so dense and numerous they created their own gravitational pull, drawing even reluctant commentators into their inescapable force field. A single tweet captured the conservative sentiment with viral precision. The View defends women only if they vote blue. Team Melania. What surprised rised media observers was the emergence of what political scientists term the unexpected middle, that rare phenomenon where some centrist commentators acknowledge potential merit in a polarizing case. I'm no Trump fan began dozens of viral posts performing what rhetoric specialists identify as the reluctant concession format, but Sonny really did cross a line here. Claiming someone hates their spouse without evidence isn't commentary, it's character assassination. Legal experts populated cable news panels like medieval scholars debating scripture, performing what television producers call the certainty contest, competing to see who could express the most unshakable confidence in predicting an inherently unpredictable judicial outcome. This case faces significant First Amendment hurdles, insisted one constitutional law professor, demonstrating what debate coaches recognize as the academic hedge, appearing authoritative while including sufficient qualification to claim correct regardless of outcome. Don't be so sure, countered another legal analyst, exhibiting the classic counter-certainty technique. There's established precedent distinguishing between protected opinion and factual claims about private matters, stating as fact that someone hates their spouse without evidence. That's legally treacherous territory. The lawsuit transformed Melania Trump overnight from what cultural anthropologists identify as the silent cipher, a figure defined primarily through Others projections into the defamation avenger. Suddenly representing every public figure who had bitten their tongue while media personalities deconstructed their personal lives, even some longtime Trump critics found themselves experiencing what psychologists term the dissonance dilemma, that uncomfortable realization that someone they dislike might occasionally have legitimate grievances. I've criticized Trump policies for years, admitted one liberal call in a surprisingly nuanced analysis, but maybe we should reconsider how we discuss public figures' private relationships without evidence behind closed doors. At ABC, marketing specialists conducted what corporate strategists call reputation damage assessment emergency focus groups, measuring how the lawsuit was affecting public perception of The View and whether advertisers might develop what sponsorship analysts term association anxiety. Meanwhile, Melania Trump maintained her character ISC public silence, an approach that media trainers identify as the strategic void, forcing others to fill the emptiness with speculation that often reveals more about the speculators than the subject. As the lawsuit-dominated headlines, one undeniable reality emerged when tremors of the legal earthquake preparing to reshape their financial landscape. Sunny continued her daily appearances, unaware she had just lit the fuse on what one media attorney would later call the defamation detonation of the decade. When news of Melania's legal lightning strike first penetrated the hallowed halls of ABC, Sunny Hostin performed what crisis management experts term the cavalier dismissal, that reflexive minimization of threat that often precedes catastrophic realization. Her initial reaction, captured behind the scenes by what insiders describe as increasingly nervous production assistants, was a masterclass in misplaced confidence. "Can you believe this?" Sunny reportedly chuckled to her makeup artist while preparing for the next day's broadcast, performing what body language experts call the defensive hair fluff, that unconscious groom behavior that betrays growing anxiety beneath projected calm. Another Trump tantrum. They love playing victim almost as much as they love their golden toilets inside the View production offices. That bustling hive of deadline-driven activity, now buzzing with new urgency. Staff members exchange what workplace psychologists identify as concerned glances, those silent communications that acknowledge potential danger while maintaining professional composure. Yet publicly the show maintained what media strategists call the invulnerability illusion, proceeding as though nine-figure litigation was merely an inconvenient backdrop to their regularly scheduled programming. Mrs. Trump needs to understand that in America we have this little thing called the First Amendment, Sunny declared during an off-air conversation with colleagues, her voice carrying what voice analysts identify as faltering bravado, confidence undermined by the subtle vocal tremors of emerging doubt. "My opinion is protected speech. Her lawsuit is going nowhere." The ABC legal department, that institutional immune system designed to protect corporate bodies from litigation infections, began what attorneys call transcript triage, the emergency assessment of exactly what had been said and how defensible those statements might prove in court. Their preliminary findings prompted what HR professionals recognize as the urgent weekend meeting, that rarely positive gathering that suggests normal business hours are insufficient to contain a growing crisis. "The problem isn't that you expressed an opinion," a network attorney reportedly explained to Sunny during a closed-door session that witnesses describe as increasingly tense. "The problem is you presented speculation about her marriage as established fact without any sourcing whatsoever. That's potentially where the vulnerability lies." Sunny's facial expression during this explanation reportedly demonstrated what psychologists term realization dawning, that slow-motion collapse of certainty as consequences come into focus. When the attorney mentioned the $900 million figure, Sunny exhibited what medical professionals identify as acute financial vertigo, that dizzy sensation when threat assessments suddenly include additional zeros. "But what can they actually do to me?" Sunny asked, her voice performing what linguists recognize as the hopeful diminishment question, seeking reassurance that threats are smaller than they appear. The attorney's silent exchange of glances with network executives answered more eloquently than words could have. As the days progressed and legal documents circulated among increasingly concerned ABC executives, Sunny's on-air demeanor underwent what behavioral analysts call the subtle withdrawal, maintaining professional poise while strategically avoiding certain topics with the precision of someone navigating a verbal minefield behind the scenes. However, staff reported increasing instances of what co-workers termed the backstage blame game. "Why didn't any of you stop me?" Sunny reportedly demanded of production staff during what meeting specialists classify as the accountability deflection session. "Where was legal review before this aired? I'm not going down alone for something the whole show participated in." Meanwhile, in Palm Beach, Melania Trump maintained her characteristic silence, that strategic absence of public comment that communications experts identify as vacuum creation, allowing opponents to fill the silence with increasingly panicked speculation. As Sunny's confidence began its slow-motion collapse, Melania's legal team methodically assembled what Trial attorneys call the evidence mountain that overwhelmingly documented case designed not merely to win but to obliterate opposition. The question hanging over ABC's offices was no longer if they should worry but precisely how worried they should be, while Sonny Hostin performed what public relations experts term the ostrich maneuver, that futile attempt to make threats disappear through strategic ignorance. Melania Trump executed what military historians recognize as the silent offensive. No tweets, no tearful interviews, no public hand-wringing, just the cold, calculated deployment of legal artillery with Swiss watch precision. Mrs. Trump doesn't telegraph her punches, whispered a former East Wing staffer, speaking in the hushed tones of someone who had witnessed the former First Lady's strategic mind at work. She studied her opponents for years while everyone underestimated her. That wasn't patience, it was reconnaissance within 72 hours of on-air proclamations about the Trump marriage. Melania's legal team, an assemblage of litigation specialists with the collective demeanor of cardiothoracic surgeons, delivered what courthouse veterans call the thud, filing a complaint so substantively heavy that clerks claimed it made an audible sound when placed on the docket counter. This isn't just a defamation claim, explained a legal analyst reviewing the documents. It's a meticulously constructed argument that the View and Hostin engaged in a pattern of deliberate character assassination. Masked his commentary, they've documented years of statements establishing what litigation strategists call malice architecture, showing this wasn't a one-time slip but a constructed narrative designed to damage. Inside the 87-page filing, what document specialists identify as the overwhelming approach, Melania's attorneys had compiled what evidence experts call the media pattern proof, dozens of instances where the View had targeted conservative women with personal attacks that went beyond political criticism into character destruction. The document demonstrated what legal scholars term the premeditation principle, proving these weren't spontaneous remarks but calculated character strikes. Most plaintiffs file emotional lawsuits, noted a veteran media attorney not involved in the case. This isn't emotional, it's surgical. The Trump team spent months building this case before anyone knew it existed. That's not reactive litigation, that's a planned operation. The massive financial demand, $900 million, represented what negotiation experts The legal thunderbolt struck the media landscape with seismic force, a $900 million defamation lawsuit that media insiders immediately dubbed the silenced First Lady's revenge tour. Melania Trump, the sphinx-like former occupant of the East Wing, had transformed overnight from reluctant public figure to legal warrior princess, wielding her complaint like Excalibur against the ramparts of daytime television. This could be the largest defamation lawsuit to ever make the media establishment soil their collective Amani, whispered a courthouse insider watching as clerks processed paperwork that would soon set phones ablaze across Manhattan's media kingdom. $900 million, that's not a number you throw around unless you're either insane or incredibly serious. Mrs. Trump is definitely not insane. Inside ABC's glass and steel fortress, the afternoon sun cast long shadows as executives performed what crisis manager term financial catastrophe calculus, that frantic mathematical gymnastics when corporations suddenly FA9 liability exposure. Conference rooms transformed into war rooms, with the View suddenly less about coffee mugs and hot topics and more about corporate survival. She was never going to stay silent forever, remarked a former White House staffer requesting the journalistic witness protection of anonymity. People mistook her quietness for weakness, the classic predator's miscalculation. The staffer paused, lowering their voice to conspiratorial levels. Melania doesn't just enter battles, she choreographs them like deadly ballets where only she knows the final movement. The lawsuit filed during what began as an unremarkable Tuesday at the federal courthouse carried the precision timing of a military strike, surprising the enemy during their complacent midday routine. Legal experts gathered like soothsayers around the filing, divining its significance between sips of overpriced espresso. This isn't merely litigation, it's declaration of war against consequence-free character assassination, declared Alan Dershowitz, his bow tie seemingly tightening with each syllable of constitutional analysis. The media has long operated in the privileged space between opinion and falsehood. Mrs. Trump just redrew those boundaries with nuclear precision behind closed doors at the View. Prod C assistant engaged in what staffers called comment archaeology, the desperate excavation of transcripts to determine exactly which verbal hand grenade had finally provoked the former First Lady's wrath. Sonny Hostin, meanwhile, maintained her on-air composure while reportedly cycling through the 5 stages of defamation: grief, backstage, denial, anger, bargaining, panic, and finally frantic calls to her insurance provider. The question hanging in the rarefied air of media boardrooms wasn't whether blood would spill, but whose, how much, and whether 9 figures would be enough to staunch the wound. As network executives stared at potential balance sheet apocalypse, one undeniable truth emerged. Melania Trump had mastered the art of revenge served at precisely absolute zero. The match that ignited this 9-figure inferno was struck on what had seemed an ordinary Tuesday broadcast of The View, that daily ritual of caffeinated commentary where the line between opinion and character assassination has long existed in a state of televised quantum uncertainty. Sonny Hostin, INS, sconed in the protective bubble of ABC studio Surrounded by nodding co-hosts and a sympathetic audience leaned forward. With what industry insiders call the pundit's certainty, that peculiar confidence reserved for those pronouncing judgment on lives they've never lived and marriages they've never witnessed. Let's be honest here, Sunny had declared, her voice carrying the unmistakable cadence of someone who believes microphones confer omniscience. Melania Trump clearly hates her husband. She's just pretending to love Donald for the financial benefits. That's not a real marriage, it's a business arrangement with occasional photo ops. The studio audience, that Greek chorus of daytime television, erupted in what producers term validation applause, that Pavlovian response when liberal-leaning viewers hear a conservative figure deconstructed. Sun's co-hosts perform synchronized nodding, that choreographed affirmation that transforms conjecture into perceived consensus. My sources close to the Trump family tell me she can barely stand to be in the same room with him, Sunny continued, despite possessing what fact checkers would later term a complete absence of actual sources. Her voice carried that television tenor that transforms gossip into apparent gospel. She's counting days until she can cash out. What Sunny and her producers failed to notice was the silent viewer in Palm Beach, the subject of their casual character dissection, watching with what those who know her describe as Slovenian stillness, that deceptive calm that precedes calculated action rather than emotional reaction. She crossed a line that Day explained, a confidant of the former First Lady. Questioning someone's politics is fair game, questioning their marriage, their love, based on what a feeling. That's when Melania decided enough was enough. In the days that followed, while The View continued its daily ritual of political pontification, a different kind of production was underway. Melania's legal team, a collection of litigation specialists with the collective demeanor of chess grandmasters, began assembling what they termed the Accountability Archive. A meticulously documented history of hosts' on-air statements about the Trump marriage opinion is protected by the First Amendment, explained a constitutional scholar following the case, but stating as fact that someone hates their spouse and is only with them for money without evidence, that's potentially crossing into defamation territory, particularly when you have millions of viewers taking your words as truth. The most damning aspect of Sun's commentary wasn't just what she said, it was the absolute certainty with which she said it, as though she possessed some secret marital surveillance system in Mar-a-Go. This wasn't presented as speculation or possibility, it was delivered as established fact from an authoritative source. As video clips of the segment spread across social media platforms, where context goes to die and outrage comes to multiply, Melania's silence was misinterpreted as weakness by those who had never understood her fundamental nature. The former model had spent decades in an industry where timing is everything, and this time she was timing her response for maximum impact. Meanwhile, in ABC's executive suites, nobody yet felt the lose in court. Melania had already achieved what image consultants recognize as the perception pivot, transforming her public narrative from passive subject to active protagonist in a single strategic legal stroke. The perception pivot hit like a freight train. Melania's silence was deafening, but Sunny Hostin, she was scrambling fast. The media storm your former First Lady unleashed didn't just ripple, it roared. Headlines screamed, tweets flew. Millions watched as Melania Trump flipped the script. From quiet spouse to legal juggernaut, leaving ABC's golden girl clutching at straws. Sunny ducked, she dodged, but the heat wouldn't let up. That $900 million lawsuit wasn't just a number anymore, it was a guillotine blade dangling over the View's neck, and Sunny felt every inch of its edge. At first she tried to play it cool on air, she sidestepped Melania's name like it was radioactive. Let's talk about something else, she'd say with a tight smile, steering the show away from the firestorm. But behind the scenes chaos reigned. Sources close to ABC spilled the tea. Sunny was leaking excuses to the press faster than a sinking ship loses water. It's all a misunderstanding, she reportedly told a reporter through gritted teeth, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Just a little mix-up happens all the time, a mix-up, sure, tell that to the Nina figure price tag. Melania slapped on her reputation. The bravado didn't last. Panic set in when the legal call started. Late night meetings with lawyers turned into marathons of dread. They can't pin this on me personally, right? Sunny demanded, handed her tone cracking like thin ice. The suits across the table shifted uncomfortably. No straight answers, just grim faces and stacks of paper. Word from the grapevine said she feared more than just ABC's liability. If this went south, her own bank account might bleed. That's when the mask slipped, confidence gone in its place. Raw fear backstage. Sunny's cool facade shattered completely. She lashed out like a cornered animal. Why didn't any of you stop me? She barked at her co-host during a heated huddle, her voice bouncing off the studio walls. Whoopi shrugged. Joy stared at the floor. No one had her back, not the way she wanted. You all nodded along, she snapped, pointing fingers like a prosecutor gone rogue. This isn't just on me. The crew swapped nervous glances. Sunny wasn't leading the charge anymore, she was drowning in it. Here's the kicker, she didn't see this coming. Sunny thought one offhand jab calling Melania a gold digger, faking love, would fade into the noise of daytime TV. She'd done it before. Smear a conservative, cue the applause, rinse and repeat. But Melania wasn't playing that game. Sunny underestimated her prey, and now the hunter was cornered. Her leaky defenses and backstage blow-ups only dug the hole deeper. Every excuse she fed the press landed like a wet firecracker fizzling out before it could spark. Melania, meanwhile, stayed quiet as a ghost. That Silence wasn't weakness, it was a weapon. Sunnis flailing just sharpened its edge. The View star host was unraveling thread by thread while the woman she'd mocked held all the cards. The public watched, the media circled, and ABC, they were sweating bullets knowing Sunnis' mess might cost them more than just a bad headline. She was sinking fast, but could she claw her way out before Melania dropped the next bomb? Sunny Hostin was sinking and the world knew it. Her excuses flopped, her co-hosts bailed. The $900 million lawsuit loomed like a storm cloud, and ABC's Golden Girl couldn't outrun the rain. But while Sunny floundered in her self-made mess, Melania Trump, she struck back hard, not with a press conference, not with a fiery tweet number. She took the fight straight to Fox News, turning the tables with a move so slick it left jaws on the floor. The former First Lady wasn't just playing defense, she was rewriting the game. Picture this: Melania gliding onto the Fox set, cool, calm, collected. The cameras rolled as she sat down to plug her new memoir. No mention of Sunny, no hint of the lawsuit, just pure calculated grace. Then came the kill shot. "What do you love most about your husband?" the host asked, leaning in. Melania smiled, soft but steel-edged his humor. She said, voice steady as a drum beat, "His kindness, his energy, it's unbelievable. We have a beautiful relationship." Boom, every word a dagger, every syllable shredding. Sunnis, she hates him, lie without even naming her. The timing perfect. Sources close to Melania's camp whispered it was no accident. Her team picked this moment right when Sunnis' panic peaked to drop this bomb. Why? To flip the narrative. Sunny painted Melania as a gold-digging fraud trapped in a sham marriage. Melania didn't argue back, she didn't need to, she just showed up, spoke her truth, and let the contrast do the work. "I love his positivity," she added, eyes locked on the camera. "We enjoy quiet dinners, music sometimes. He plays DJ. It's fun, simple, direct to devastating." The internet exploded. Clips of that interview raced across X, racking up millions of views in hours. Melania just buried Sunny without breaking a sweat. One user tweeted, "Nailing the vibe." Conservative fans cheered, "That's our First Lady." They roared online, even skeptics had to pause. "She sounds genuine." A neutral commenter admitted maybe Sunny got it wrong. The clip wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a masterclass in quiet power. Melania didn't yell, she didn't rant, she let her life speak louder than Sunnis' cheerpap shots ever could. Back at ABC, jaws tightened. Sunnis' team watched the Fox hit like it was a slow-motion car crash. "She's twisting this," one staffer hissed in a frantic huddle, voice sharp with dread. "She's making us look like liars." Sunny stayed off air, but insiders said she fumed. "How's she so calm?" she reportedly snapped to a producer, pacing like a caged lion. The answer: Melania wasn't calm, she was lethal. Every word she spoke on Fox was a chess move, checkmating Sunny's smug accusations with cold hard facts. Here's the genius: Melania didn't get dirty, she didn't sling mud or call Sunny out, she rose above, turning a slanderous jab into a golden opportunity. That Fox appearance wasn't just PR, it was a weapon forged to reclaim her image and shove Sunny deeper into the hole. The public ate it up. The media buzzed, and ABC, they felt the ground slipping. Sunnis' flimsy misunderstanding excuse looked weaker by the minute, while Melania stood taller than ever. But this wasn't the end game, not yet. Melania's team knew the lawsuit still hung heavy. Fox was just a taste, a preview of the fight she'd bring to court. Sunny was rattled, sure. ABC was sweating, but could they regroup before Melania's next strike hit even harder? Melania's Fox News strike landed like a grenade. Sunny Hostin was reeling, the public was buzzing. That calm, cutting interview didn't just shred Sunnis' lies, it lit a fuse under ABC's glass tower. The network felt it hard. Melania wasn't slowing down, and her $900 million lawsuit wasn't some distant threat anymore. It was a ticking clock inside ABC's sleek headquarters. The mood flipped fast, smug smiles vanished, boardrooms turned into bunkers. The View's golden era, it was teetering on the edge of a financial cliff, and everyone knew it. Panic hit the XX like a slap. Late-night meetings stacked up, ties loosened, voices raised. "We've got sponsors pulling back," one suit barked, slamming a fist on the table. "Sources spilled the dope. Big brands, household names were eyeing the exits. Contracts worth millions hung in the back. They are spooked." An insider confessed, voice low. "Nobody wants their logo tied to a sinking ship." A leaked memo laid it bare: "We can't lose this show." But losing it, that was starting to feel real. Melania's nine-figure demand wasn't just a number, it was a death nail ringing in their ears. The math didn't lie. If advertisers bolted, the View's lifeline would snap. Tens of millions could vanish. A finance guy warned, sweat beating on his brow. "Maybe more if she wins." That if hung heavy. Melania's Fox move had shifted the game. Her words, her poise, they weren't just a PR when they were a warning shot. She wasn't bluffing. In ABC, they weren't ready. "She's playing us like pawns." An exec muttered, pacing the room, every steps calculated. The lawsuit papers sat on the table thick as a brick, mocking their every move. Sunny felt the heat too. She'd gone quiet on air, but backstage she was a live wire. "They are hanging me out to dry," she snapped at a producer, her voice slicing through the tension. Sources said she'd cornered the brass, demanding answers. "Fix this," she hissed, "or I'm not the only one going down." The XX swapped grim looks. Sunny wasn't wrong, her mess was their mess now, but fixing it, that meant facing a brutal choice: fight Melania and risk it all, or cut losses and pray the Bleeding stopped. Here's the kicker. Melania knew their weak spot. Money power runs on it, and she'd aimed her $900 million dagger right at ABC's wallet. That Fox hit wasn't just about image, it was leverage, cranking up the pressure till the sponsors flinched. She didn't need to shout, she didn't need to gloat, she just let the dominoes fall, and they were falling fast. Ad rep scrambled, phones buzzed in with nervous clients. We're reviewing our options. One sponsor. Hedge translation, they were halfway out the door. The View's future dangled by a thread. Melania stood tall, her silence louder than ever. Sunny, she was a ghost haunting the studio with every shaky step. ABC's big wigs stared at the numbers, the sponsors, the lawsuit, and saw a nightmare staring back. Could they pull the plug to save the ship, or double down and hope for a miracle? The clock was ticking and Melania wasn't done yet. The clock was ticking and ABC couldn't stop it. Melania's $900 million lawsuit had the network on its knees. Sponsors wavered, execs scrambled. The View's once solid ground was crumbling, and every move Melania made tightened the noose. Now the real fight loomed. Court day was closing in fast. Both sides dug in, weapons drawn, ready for illegal showdown that could rewrite the rules. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore, it was war, and the stakes were sky high. Melania's team came out swinging. Sources leaked the bombshell. They had proof, not just guesses, hard evidence, old interviews, clips of the View's hosts tearing into conservative women like it was sport. This isn't a one-off, illegal insider whispered. Vio tight, it's a pattern. They've got a mountain of it. Melania's lawyers weren't playing small. They aimed to prove Sunny and her crew didn't just slip up. They planned it, every word, every jab, a calculated smear campaign masked as hot takes. We've got the receipts, one attorney reportedly bragged, eyes glinting. This goes way beyond Sunnis rant. A BC fired back hard, their defense. Free speech, it's opinion, not fact. A network lawyer snapped in a leaked memo, voiced Dree with defiance. She's protected, end of story. But the bravado rang hollow behind closed doors. Panic simmered, words slipped out. They feared the judge wouldn't buy it. Sunnis claim Melania hating Donald, faking love for cash, wasn't tossed out casually. She'd sold it as gospel. No allegedly in sight. That's the line a legal analyst warned on air. Cross it and free speech won't save you. ABC's team scrambled to store up their case, but the cracks were showing. The media smelled blood. Headlines roared, biggest defamation clash ever. Pundits swarmed, cable news picking sides. Melania has got a shot, one argued, brow furrowed. This could expose media bias for good. Another pushed back. Sunny safe, courts love the First Amendment. The buzz hit fever pitch. X lit up with takes, some cheering Melania's stand, others mocking her odds. She's taking on a titan. A viral post read, win or lose, that's guts. The public leaned in, hooked on every twist. Melania stayed cool as ice. No statements, no leaks from her camp, just that quiet confidence that drove Sunny nuts. Her silence wasn't retreat, it was strategy. She let ABC sweat, let the evidence speak, let the court date creep closer. Sunny, though she was a mess. What do they have on me? She reportedly grilled, her lawyer's voice spiking with dread. No one knew, not fully, that uncertainty gwed at her, at ABC, at everyone watching. Here's the rub. Melania wasn't just fighting for herself, she was swinging for every conservative voice The View had trashed over the years. Her team's evidence didn't just defend her marriage, it aimed to torch the network's playbook. ABC saw the trap. If this hit court, those clips could air publicly. Every smug jab, every BAS dig exposed. We're not ready for that, an exec muttered, face pale. They weren't, but Melania was. The showdown loomed, both sides locked and loaded. Melania's proof versus ABC's shield. The judge's gavel would decide, could Sunny dodge the bullet, or would Melania blow the whole game wide open?